Hey everybody, it's Nicole Johnson with Covision Real Estate Group, and today's mortgage note video is about liability. So what's the liability when you own a mortgage note versus what's the liability when you own a rental? So let's dive in. When you own a rental and you have a tenant in the property, you are potentially liable. Let's say they trip on the sidewalk. They fall on ice and found that it was negligible, that you weren't properly, you don't have the right drainage system, and a big pool of ice is outside and your tenant slips on that, you are potentially liable for that because it caused injury and harm, and you could be found negligent of taking care of that. And so with owning a rental, as a landlord, you actually have a large amount of liability for harm that could come to your tenant or guests on the property. So if you own a rental, I highly suggest you have an umbrella policy that covers liability, at least $1 million, just to protect you. If you love your rentals, protect yourself and make sure you have the liability. So what's the liability if you own a mortgage note? Honestly, nothing. A tenant, or you're not even a tenant. The owner of the property, if they get hurt on the property, if they get if any injuries caused on the property, that's their own dang fault because they own the property. You just own the piece of paper. So you can't have an owner call and sue the bank because they didn't have the right drainage on the property. It's their own dang fault. They have to have their own insurance policy and are responsible for that because they own the property. You just own the piece of paper on that. So I hope that makes sense of the difference between the liability. As a mortgage note holder, you don't have any liability if injury happens on the property because you just own the piece of paper. As a landlord, you have a tremendous amount of liability if injury happens because you're responsible and you need to make sure that the property is properly maintained in order to prevent injury. And if it's not, they can come after you. So make sure you have an umbrella policy if you do have rental so you're covered and insured properly. So that's my take. If you sound like you're tired or don't want to deal with the liability, switching to mortgage notes might be a great investment opportunity for you, and a switch in your portfolio to reduce your liability risk, but also enjoy the cash flow. If that sounds interesting to you, reach out, give me a call. Would love to share more information. Thanks so much. Bye.